The early Industrial Revolution, 1760 to 1851. What were the causes of the Industrial Revolution and how did it affect the society and environment of industrialized countries?
The preconditions of England in the 18th century were what allowed the Industrial Revolution to begin. Between 1650 and 1850, Europe's population more than doubled as a result of widespread resistance to disease, reliable and abundant food supplies from the Columbian Exchange and the Agricultural Revolution, and gradual improvements in income, which allowed people to marry earlier and support more children. At the same time, Europe was becoming more urbanized as rural workers moved to cities in hopes of finding better jobs. The increase in urban workers provided more labor for factories and other industrialized jobs. The population growth in Britain increased demand for goods and lowered labor costs, two contributing factors to the Industrial Revolution. To the rest of Europe, Britain had one of the most fluid societies. Their aristocracy was less powerful and their political power was decentralized and less intrusive, resulting in few obstacles in commerce and marketing that allowed a very large portion of British commoners to gain wealth. Britain's commercial culture was also very modern compared to the rest of continental Europe, as they used joint stock companies, a stock market, commercial insurance, and strong banks, all of which allowed a more efficient and stable economy. Additionally, Britain had good water transportation that did not require payment of tolls, which encouraged regions to trade with each other. Most importantly, Britain had abundant supplies of coal and iron ore, two natural resources that were essential for fuel and construction during the Revolution.
As shown in the graph, the use of coal rose exponentially during the Industrial Revolution. People began to use more coal to power machines and factories, and the need for firewood and animals decreased as they became more dependent on machinery. The use of these resources had been increasing, yet a dramatic increase occurred between the 1800s and 1850s, showing that the exponential rate in which they were used and needed. In contrast, Italy during the 1850s used more firewood than coal, as they have not yet advanced in industrialization as England.
This technological revolution resulted in the emergence of mass production and the division of labor. In 1759, John Wedgwood, an English industrialist, was the first to produce fine-quality pottery using industrial methods. He was also the first to use division of labor, which broke down a craft into small repetitive tasks able to be performed by unskilled workers. While increasing productivity, factory owners could also save money because the workers were unskilled and could be paid less.
The increased demand for goods in Britain encouraged innovations and experiments in new technology in order to make production more efficient. Preceding the Industrial Revolution, textiles were produced by highly skilled artisans with years of training. Producing textiles had high labor costs, and increasing production would mean training new artisans, a process that was both expensive and took many years. Merchant investors who sought to increase efficiency and productivity in textile production turned to proto-industrialization. In this system, merchants subdivided the traditionally difficult task of artisans, turning them into simple procedures that could be carried out by rural laborers and farm families. These proto-industrial workers received raw materials along with simple machinery such as looms and the spinning jenny, and quickly learned to spin wool and produce cloth that would later be transformed by the skilled laborers. Although the system lowered labor costs and increased production, the quality of the products deteriorated.
Beginning with the cotton industry. The jenny, invented in 1764, drew out cotton fibers and twisted them into thread. They were cheap to build and easy for one person to operate. However, the thread that was created was too soft and irregular to be used alone and had to be combined with linen. In 1769, Richard Arkwright invented a better spinning machine, the water frame, which produced thread that was strong enough to be used without linen. The machine was more complex than the jenny and needed to use a water wheel as a source of energy. Another invention was the mule, which combined the best features of both the jenny and the watermill. Invented in 1785 by Samuel Crompton, this machine could make finer thread than any human could at a lower cost, resulting in British cotton outputs increasing tenfold between 1770 and 1790. The making of iron was also transformed during this time period. Iron production required charcoal for smelting, and deforestation eventually drove up the prices and restricted output of charcoal. However, the discovery of coke, coal which impurities had been cooked out of, could be used in place of charcoal, made iron that was cheaper to produce. With cheap iron being abundant, mass production of guns, hardware, and tools became more appealing, and to reduce labor costs, manufacturers developed standardized interchangeable parts. The steam engine was an immensely important invention that was created during this time period. Invented by Thomas Newcomen and later improved by James Watt, the steam engine was the first machine to make fossil fuel into mechanical energy. It was first developed to clear water from coal mines, and because it was usually right next to the coal mine, the fact that it used up so much of it didn't matter. James Watt later noticed that the engine wasted energy because it had to be alternately heated and cooled. He improved on the design by creating a separate condenser that allowed steam to be let out, keeping the cylinder always hot and the condenser always cool. In 1781, Watt then invented the sun and planet gear, which allowed steam engines to power machinery in mills and factories, and also provided energy for ships and railroads. Railroads made travel more popular because it became cheaper, faster, and more comfortable than traveling on stagecoaches. The expansion of railroads in the United States had the most transformative effects. It opened up land and people did not have access to before, dispersed immigrants, turned more lands into farms, and created a vast market for manufacturers. These railroads also accelerated the industrialization of Europe, as other countries were quick to copy British railroads. Not only did railroads improve transportation, it also stimulated iron and machinery industry.
All aboard! When are we gonna get there, Mom?
I told you, Belma, it was 3 days!
Mom, are we there yet?
Stop it, Belma!
Good day. Thank you. Mom, I'm hungry.
Stop it!
The map shows the many different facilities that each city are beginning to gain from the revolution. As time passes by, new technology like the railroads came into use. New countries are becoming centers of the industry and the population is increasing. As England was one of the first places to industrialize, they have had more people living in cities than the other surrounding countries which industrialized after England. From the map you can see that the red dots indicate coal and iron deposits. Coal was important to many nations because it fueled the engines in the factories and the steam. Iron ore deposits were used for making steel, which was important for railroads.
Since the Industrial Revolution was at first local, it then led to changes in society. Countries became more modernized as industrial nations began to face many problems regarding labor and pollution. Environmental changes occurred the most in towns. Cities like London, Manchester, and New York City had an increase in population, which led to overcrowding. Industrialization added more diseases as town dwellers threw the trash onto the streets, causing extreme litter and severe contamination of water. More trees were being chopped down in order to create open land for building factories, leading to deforestation. Factory workers were working long hours while doing repetitive jobs. Women usually weaved, sewed, prepared food, or worked in the textile mills where it required the least strength. Employers hired children as small as 5 or 6 because they didn't need to get paid as much. The children worked as hard as the adults and were beaten if the job was not done right. Child labor was co-vetted because they were able to fit into smaller places and more easily manipulated.
So, how do you feel about working here?
I like it here. The factory is really nice, and the boss is really nice.
How long have you been working here?
6 months.
How old are you?
12.
What are those bruises on your face?
I fell down when I was playing,
Because it's such a fun environment. They're just passing around.
This is a report on the working conditions of children in canning factories in Maryland in 1909, and the author is unknown. The document details witnessing children as young as 4 working around unguarded belts, wheels, cogs, and the like. The wages were low and irregular, and children had to work in order to give the family a living wage. As a result, the children would either get little or no formal educations. Working conditions were made worse by the overseers in the factories, as they would often beat the children if they were not working up to their standards.
Not only did changes occur in society, but the revolution caused many political conflicts. As workers began to protest, laissez-faire created by Adam Smith came into action. This was the idea that government should refrain from interfering in economic affairs. This meant that people believed government shouldn't be involved in businesses. Adam Smith thought that more wealth to the common people would benefit a nation's economy and society as a whole. Instead of the workers listening to the philosopher's ideas, they resisted their work and protested. The protesters destroyed many of the machines because they were afraid their skills were no longer needed, therefore leading to unemployment. Around the 1830s, the Factory Act came into place and prohibited any child younger than 9 to work in factories, while children 9 to 13 had shorter working hours due to health issues.
Today, innovations and methods from the Industrial Revolution are still constantly being used. Although China was late to industrialize compared to regions in Europe and the Americas, today China is a leading manufacturing economy. Through mass production with industrialized machines along with the use of assembly lines, two innovations of the Industrial Revolution, China is able to increase productivity in manufacturing. However, similar to times during the Industrial Revolution, workers received low wages for long hours with minimal safety regulations in order to lower the price of production while increasing profit.
Mom, I need pee. We're almost here, Velma. We're here. We made